Hi, Assalamualaikum. My name is Nuswada binti Muhammad Nasir and my metric number is 262604. Today's presentation is about the best practice in Maldives, and my chosen topic is solid waste management in Faris Matoda, Maldives. So, without further ado, let me begin the presentation. Before we go to the content, let me explain a little bit about Maldives. Maldives is the smallest country in Asia. The country has been recognized by its beauty and the uniqueness of how the archaeology of the island has formed. The Maldives are located in southwest of Sri Lanka and India in the Indian Ocean. Almost 122 islands are developed as tourist resorts, and over 78 islands are considered being used for agriculture use and other livelihood purposes. However, in this case study, I will be focused in one of the island in Maldives, which is known as Faris Matoda. The island of Faris Matoda is home to 936 people in the data of 2006. It was originally two separate islands, which is Faris and Matoda, until they were joined by the reclamation of the shallow water passage between them during 1990s. This reclamation was associated with the construction of the small craft harbor for the two islands. Next is the issues in Maldives. The island in Maldives suffer from severe environmental pollution and deteriorating livability due to inadequate collection and haphazard disposal of solid waste. Maldives in recent years has faced a significant increase in the magnitude of solid waste management problems for a number of reasons. Some of the key problems preventing sustainable improvement in the solid waste management are insufficient funding of infrastructure, absence of appropriate cost recovery mechanism, inadequate institutional capacity, weak legislative and regulatory framework, and limited capacity for involvement of private sector in service delivery. Another very key element is the weak public knowledge on good practices of waste management, including waste minimization, collection, disposal, and where possible waste utilization. As in 2015, Faris Matoda is facing severe issue with regard to waste management. Garbage were dumped at various locations around the islands. The marshy area, which was previously used for agriculture, littered with solid waste. There is no collection or sorting facilities for garbage generated on the island. Where there is a fishery community, fish waste is not utilized, for example, for making composting. The general population of the island does not have the capacity to address these issues without some external intervention. Behavior change could address some of the issues such as garbage disposal, waste minimization, and waste utilization. As you can see in the slide, there is some pictures showing that how severe the pollution in Maldives. Next is how Maldives solved the issues is by promoting a locally effective solution to a mangrove through a Mangrove for the Future (MFF) project. It is a regional coastal conservation program co-chaired by IUCN and UNDP. The project involved establishment of a functional waste management system in the island communities of Faris Matoda and Vandu. This is to be achieved through a severe training and awareness campaign. In November 2015, the island embarked on a journey to manage waste after a cinema studio called Red Production won a small grant from the MFF program, and the activities in the program included: first, support the renovation of existing waste management center. This island councillors reopened an old waste management center that has been closed and abandoned for years. Changes were made to the infrastructure and architectural setup to make it functional. This included enclosing the machinery cell and raising the walls of the storage to prevent flooding and damages from rain, which were later incorporated to the national drawing of island waste management centers. Second is set up waste management governance mechanism. After a series of stakeholders consultation and island-wide survey, a governance mechanism was set up to achieve this task, which is the island resident agreed to pay a small fee for waste collection right from their doorstep. Third is creating a sustainable waste collection system. A community that included the island school, health center and women's development committee was established to steer up and guide the implementation of the system. A pickup truck made a stop at each house every morning to collect a household waste from the previous day. Each house is allocated a number upon registration. The waste get carefully separated into waste category containers, which are placed next to the number given to each household. After the truck is done doing its round, it goes back to the waste management center where the metal, glass and plastic are kept separately. Fourth is make a compost using a biodegradable waste. They found that mixing a seaweed with the leaf litter half the time of composting, reduce an immense amount of labor and save space for additional compost piles. The seaweed compost also has a higher nutritious content, which means it can attract higher value. The compost is then sold off to the locals as well as a tourist resort to generate a revenue to run the center. Fifth is practicing reuse, recycle, reduce and avoid. The council is also recycling items to reduce the waste for the transportation. The storage cabinet of the waste management center is a discarded refrigerator. Many such dustbins made from old washing machines are installed in the public space in the island. Another interesting innovation is an electronic compost sieve retrofit with a motor salvage from a discarded machine. This has proved to be especially helpful since it saves time opposed to manually doing it, and it also has eliminated the work needed to dry it out because previously it needed to be spread out in the sun. Last but not least is creating awareness of other communities to adopt best practice on waste management. In June 2016, the school teamed up with the MFF program to appoint and train young waste management ambassadors to spread information about waste management practices. They hope that this step like this would help the island reach a model of managing waste that surpasses what has so far been achieved on the other island. Next, this is a pictures of the implementation of the project in Maldives. As a result, the waste management center at First Mothoda was made functional. First Mothoda Island was then successfully acquired the National Best Practice Example Award for their waste management efforts. Many innovation solutions on the island waste management are now being tested and piloted. Apart from that, the area around the Kulhi, which used to be the major downside of the island community, are now being a heartwarming aesthetic value in the island. In the evening, children and youngsters now can gather around the pond, lounging around in the bench, and playing guitar and socializing with their friends in the exact same areas. And as we can see in the slide, that is the pictures of the successful result after the implementation of the project. So, what Malaysians can learn from the case study is their optimism. According to the case in the Ferris Mathoda, the duration to achieve the result is very short as 8 months. It means that they do it to the fullest and they manage to gain the result immediately. This is the most significant comparison with the Malaysian solid waste management in Pulau Ketam, Selangor. It is because the management in Pulau Ketam take a few years for us to see the result. Based on my findings, the effort to clean the rubbish at Pulau Ketam started in 2011 and the result was seen in 2018. We can say that it's not as efficient as they take 7 years to finally clean the area around the area, which is a very long period of time. Apart from that, Malaysia can also look up on how various methods create awareness of the communities to adopt best practice on waste management. This is because Malaysia nowadays are still lack of environmental awareness, and this is one of the main cause that Malaysia didn't achieve the best practice in solid waste management. As for the conclusion, managing solid waste can be difficult and long process, which sometimes can be success and sometimes can be fails. It is good to ensure that every effort that being made are optimistically done and do not stop at the middle of the war. This is because we know that a good practice like this takes generation to change. Therefore, we need to start early and effectively to avoid any possible of negative impact due to the inefficient solid waste management in Malaysia or even in the world. Last but not least, before we end the presentation for today, these are some of the list of reference that I've been used for this case study and for the research. And I think that's all from me for today. Thank you for listening and have a good day ahead.